The summer of 1518 was long and hot in the city of Strasbourg. The sun beat down on the tight timber-framed houses. It baked the dusty cobblestones of the narrow streets. Life was hard. The harvest had been poor. People worried about hunger. They feared sickness. In the air hung a quiet tension, a sense of things held just barely in balance. In this city, a place of faith. In this city, a place of fear. It would not start with a great pronouncement from the cathedral pulpit, nor with the arrival of an army. It would start with a single woman. Her name was Frau Troffea. We do not know much about her life before that day. She was a wife, a resident of the city, a face in the crowd. But one day in mid-July, she stepped out of her home and into the street. She did not walk to the market. She did not go to visit a neighbor. Instead, she began to dance. Her feet moved in a strange, restless rhythm. Her arms lifted and fell. Her body swayed, not with joy, but with a kind of urgent need. The movements were jerky, uncontrolled. She danced alone under the harsh summer sun. At first, people simply watched. A woman dancing in the street was an odd sight. Some may have laughed, others shook their heads and moved on. As the hours passed, curiosity turned to concern, and then to a quiet, creeping unease. This was not a dance of celebration. It was something else entirely, unsettling and wrong. She danced as if a force outside her own will compelled her feet to move. She danced through the day and into the night. She did not stop for food. She did not stop for water. She did not seem to hear the voices calling out to her. Her husband pleaded with her to rest, but she could not. She danced until her feet were swollen and bleeding. She would collapse from exhaustion, sleep for a few fitful hours, then rise again to continue her frantic, silent performance. For nearly a week, Frau Troffea danced alone in the streets of Strasbourg. She was the first, but she would not be the last. The strange fever was only just beginning to take hold. The sight of Frau Troffea's ceaseless dance had a profound effect on her neighbors, both frightening and fascinating. Day after day, a crowd gathered to watch her tormented movements. They saw the pain in her eyes, the exhaustion etched on her face. A strange energy began to build in the narrow street. It was a mix of pity, fear, and a bizarre, unspoken sympathy. Her lonely dance was like a spark thrown into a pile of dry tinder. Soon the fire would start to spread. One by one, others began to feel the same irresistible urge to move. Within a week of Frau Troffea's first steps, several dozen other people had joined her, men and women from the same neighborhood. They poured out of their houses and into the streets, their bodies twitching and jerking in the same uncontrolled way. The solo performance had become a chaotic, sprawling chorus. The small group of dancers grew larger every day. The strange compulsion seemed to be contagious. Piety passed not by touch, but by sight. As the month of July bled into August, chronicles claim nearly 400 people were caught in the grip of the dancing mania. The city of Strasbourg was thrown into chaos. The dancers took over the public squares and the marketplaces. The leaders of Strasbourg were powerful and respected men. They were used to dealing with problems, finances, disputes, defenses. But this was a problem unlike any they had ever faced. From the Guildhall windows, they saw the heaving mass below. They debated the cause. Was it a natural illness? Was it a supernatural curse? Their discussions mixed knowledge and fear. The physicians drew on ancient Greek theory, the body's humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. A healthy person had balance. Sickness was imbalance. The doctors concluded the dancers suffered from hot blood to be cured by bleeding, but with so many afflicted, bleeding was impractical. The council needed a different solution, and quickly. If hot blood meant excess energy, perhaps they should dance it out. A guild hall and the open-air horse market were cleared. designated spaces created. They actively helped, hired drummers, pipers, even healthy dancers, to keep the afflicted moving, to impose order on chaos. The official response was not to stop the dancing, but to manage it. A well-intentioned plan. It was a terrible miscalculation. While the physicians spoke of hot blood, many ordinary people turned to faith and folklore. To the medieval mind, the line between natural and supernatural was thin. A strange illness could be punishment from God or the work of a spirit. In Strasbourg, whispers said the dancers were under a divine curse. They had angered a powerful saint, the name on many lips, Saint Vitus, a 4th century martyr linked across Europe to disorders of involuntary movement, epilepsy, chorea, often called Saint Vitus's dance. He could inflict and cure. People prayed to him for protection. Some said Strasbourg's sins, pride, greed, lack of piety, had provoked his wrath. The clergy took it seriously, dismissing hot blood. Priests and bishops declared a curse. They ordered religious remedies, special masses, solemn processions, relics borne through the streets while hymns were sung. People were urged to fast, confess, and appease the saint. As dancing intensified, the council listened to priests, music banned, public dancing forbidden, stages torn down, the afflicted forced on pilgrimage to a shrine of Saint Vitus. Centuries later, modern science sought new answers. The tale was strange, yet recorded in Strasbourg's own records. One compelling theory points to bread, and especially rye, staple of the poor. Rye can host a fungus, Claviceps purpurea, ergot, a dark purplish growth containing psychoactive alkaloids. Milled and baked into bread, it can cause ergotism. Convulsive ergotism brings spasms, twitching, violent convulsions. It can produce vivid hallucinations, delirium, and psychosis. These sound remarkably similar to accounts from 1518. The year's weather, wet spring followed by a hot, dry summer, suited ergot's growth. After a poor harvest, stored grain was more likely contaminated. A community eating tainted flour could suffer mass poisoning, but the theory struggles with the dancer's endurance. Ergotism is debilitating and can cause gangrene. Could sufferers truly dance for days or weeks? Perhaps ergot was only part of the story. If a physical poison cannot fully explain the dancing plague, perhaps the answer lies not in the body but in the mind. Another modern theory points to mass psychogenic illness, mass hysteria, when groups under extreme stress exhibit shared physical symptoms without a clear medical cause. The illness spreads by social contagion. Seeing symptoms can trigger them in observers. Strasbourg in 1518 was under immense strain, famine, disease like smallpox and leprosy, the lingering terror of the Black Death. An age of intense belief brought fear of divine punishment and damnation. Poverty, disease, and spiritual terror created a psychological pressure cooker. In this tense environment, Frau Troffea's public dance could trigger others. A culture of possession and curses primed minds to manifest the same symptoms. The dance became a shared public breakdown, a physical outlet for unbearable strain. This helps explain spread and endurance, and, paired with ergot, suggests a perfect storm of body and mind. The decision to build stages and hire musicians was meant as a cure, grounded in the medicine of its day, but the constant driving rhythms, drums and pipes, left the dancers no rest. A formal stage and onlookers turned private agony into public spectacle, a macabre theater. Days of non-stop movement took a brutal toll, feet raw and bloody, shoes disintegrated, legs swollen, joints aching, extreme dehydration, starvation, yet they could not stop to eat or drink. As days turned to weeks, dancers collapsed, some from exhaustion, others from catastrophic events. The frantic activity strained their hearts. Many died from heart attacks, from strokes, from sheer exhaustion. One account, up to 15 dying each day at the peak. Stages of healing became places of death. The piper's music turned to a funeral dirge. Horrified, leaders reversed course. Music stopped, stages dismantled, gatherings forbidden. Dancers were rounded up, bound in wagons and transported to the mountain shrine of Saint Vitus, hopes pinned on ritual where medicine had failed. After several weeks of chaos and suffering, the dancing plague began to subside. Whether due to interventions at the St. Vitus Shrine, the removal of dancers from public gaze, or the cause running its course, we do not know. By early September, the last of the dancers had stopped moving. The frantic energy dissipated, the streets fell quiet. Survivors returned home, exhausted and traumatized. The city began to count its dead and make sense of what happened. It was recorded in chronicles, in sermons, and in notes by doctors and scholars. Documents sometimes contradict, but agree on the basics. Many danced for an extended period, and many suffered and died. The story spread beyond Strasbourg, a cautionary tale that entered folklore. It became the most famous example of dancing mania, seen sporadically in Europe from the 14th to the 17th centuries. Artists carved woodcuts of wild dancers, distorted bodies and manic faces, capturing fear and fascination. The full truth of what happened in Strasbourg in the summer of 1518 may be lost forever. The eyewitnesses are gone, the records incomplete, the evidence turned to dust. We can form theories, we can weigh probabilities, but we cannot stand in those streets, feel the heat of that summer sun, or hear the unnerving rhythm of hundreds of stamping feet. The mystery endures, not for lack of trying, but because it lies at the intersection of body, mind, and culture in a different world. It reminds us of human vulnerability, how fragile social order can be, and how fear, stress, and belief can combine to produce seemingly irrational behavior. The people of Strasbourg were not foolish. They struggled to survive dangers they could not control using the tools they had. Ancient medicine and deep faith. This is a human story of Frau Troffea and the hundreds who followed, of desperate leaders and priests who tried and failed to find a cure. The dancers were not celebrating. They were caught in a nightmare, their bodies prisons of endless motion, a quiet tragedy on a public stage. The dance is over. The music has long since stopped. The stages are gone. Today the streets are filled with tourists and shoppers, not frantic, exhausted dancers, but the memory of that strange summer lingers. It echoes down the centuries, a faint and unsettling tune, asking questions we cannot fully answer about the limits of our understanding. The bodies have come to rest, but the story continues to move. A silent, haunting dance in the quiet corridors of history. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's strangest medical mysteries, a haunting reminder of how fear, faith, and the human mind can intertwine. Stationary shot showcasing texture and detail.